Welcome, everybody. We're going to get this rolling, and we're going to try and get into a pretty interesting conversation. I've been very fortunate to work with both of these artists at varying stages of their careers and watched their sort of evolution, and it's been really impressive. These are two of the most entrepreneurial artists out there, and they've done a pretty incredible job really creating careers for themselves when they're, almost from scratch. So I'll give brief introductions and then I'll let them sort of take it from here. So I want to start with Council only because these three brothers, whether you believe it or not, I know that they not only look identical, they actually happen to be brothers. Grew up on a farm in Rochester. I think it was Rochester, right? Syracuse. Upstate New York. And they were all in college together. They just decided one day that they wanted to be a rock band. And they went and committed to everything that entailed. They learned their instruments. They dedicated their, hours and hours a day to getting better at their craft. I met them initially through actually somebody else that was on this podcast, which is Brian Malouf. And these guys were three of the most incredible and hungry networkers that I had ever met. And we did some music. A couple of years passed after we did something together, and then they reapproached me about 4 years ago, I want to say now, something like that, and asked me if I would be interested. 5 years ago, I think almost, and asked me if I'd be interested in producing an EP for them. So we sort of strategized how that would look, and we came up with a deal. We produced an EP. And I don't want to get too deep into the process of it because I'd rather tell it from their point of view. But at one point, when they were having some frustrations trying to, get a record deal or trying to get people to sort of really commit, we came up with a strategy together that these guys really integrated to 100% accuracy and did a pretty amazing job. The first thing we did was we said, hey, let's release a song. And even though they had no fans and no awareness and nobody knew who they were, we went and released a song. And after the first week, I think we had 25,000 streams on Spotify, which were pretty blown away by a totally independent band. And then they went and built that up to more than 20 million streams. Now, I don't want to tell the story. I'm going to let them tell the story. So we'll get into that. Let's pause that there for a moment. Then I want to talk about another incredible artist. Honestly, sincerely, man, I've worked with some pretty amazing singers over my career, and this woman has just something very special about her voice. Not only can she sing the shit out of anything, but what also makes it so special and so unique is that it has a very significant sound. It has a real tone. It has a real color and a presence to her voice, and I think that's something that is reserved for really special vocalists like Adele or Sia or Beyonce, people that you hear them and initially they have that it's them. I think Madilyn Bailey has that. I heard it from the first time that I ever worked with her, but we kind of worked together in a different point because Madilyn had already really established herself as a significant powerhouse on YouTube from doing covers. And in fact, and I want her to discuss this, one of my favorite Madilyn stories before I worked with her was that she actually had a #1 hit in France with a Sia song before Sia had a hit in France with a Sia song, which I thought was pretty incredible how she did that. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to you Madilyn Bailey and Council. So thanks for joining us, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Madilyn, I want to start with you. So a lot of you are extremely well known worldwide for your really incredible covers of existing pop songs. That was the first sort of thing. So maybe can you kind of go back a little bit to the beginning of your career and be like, this is the light bulb moment for me. What was that?
I grew up in a very small town in Wisconsin, population 1,042 people. I just really wanted to do music, and YouTube had just started when I was really starting to get into it. And I saw people posting covers and I was like, well, that's something I can do. And so I just got a video camera, filmed my first video, actually several times, deleted it, and then finally got the courage and uploaded it. At the time it was my first video got 100 views and I was like, whoa, wait. This is more people than I go to school with. So Some people are watching this who aren't related to me and don't go to school with me. So, but it pretty quickly, it took off pretty quickly after that. Within the first 6 months of posting videos on YouTube, it really started to snowball. I started getting calls from management groups in LA and labels in LA, and I started getting flown out for writing sessions when I was 16. And yeah, it just like, I don't know, it took on its own life. And I kind of, when I first started posting videos, I identified it really early. I was like, YouTube is going to be the new thing, and I have to get in on like ground zero, and I have to make it everything. So I graduated early from high school, and then just started doing like trying to cover as many of the popular songs that were being released, as well as releasing my own music. And then like what it allowed me to be able to do was it gave me this like financial backing to be able to then move to LA and almost exclusively work on my songwriting, which is really cool. I love the idea that like artist development happens behind the scenes, and like most people don't get to see all that development. So like over the past 5 years, and you know, you've experienced you're a piece of that, learning how to write songs in LA.
I mean, I think that you're, like, with all due respect, I think you're skipping some steps there, right? Like one of the things that I think you're skipping, you say, well, you know, I've kind of put up these songs, and then it sort of happened. But like, were you promoting it? Like, in your mind, how are people going to find you? Like, were you tagging the songs in a certain way? Like, had you been doing research to go, oh, it's one thing to upload the videos, but if I tag them a certain way, then I'm going to be more likely to be found. Like, tell me about that part of your research.
Yeah, so I don't put my name in the title of the covers, because the whole idea of doing a cover song is to like tap into an already existing search engine, like a algorithm. So basically, if I cover an Ed Sheeran song, what I'm hoping to do is tap into Ed Sheeran's already existing algorithm. And then hopefully what'll happen is if I get closely associated, if my video gets closely associated enough with his, it'll show up either like as a recommended video on the side of his video. Early on YouTube, it was almost like a science. Like if Katy Perry posted a song, I would post mine the same day and it would get recommended next to hers. Doesn't really work like that anymore, but it was fun. Like when YouTube was very new, you could kind of like predict the algorithm and kind of figure out when and how to post your videos to get the most exposure.
Well, what I want to come back to is to say, if you were starting this now, how would you approach it? But keep that in the back of your mind for a moment, because I want to go over to the council fellas. So when I met these guys, they were so motivated to make it, and I'd almost never met people that were just willing to do whatever it took and put in the hours and hours and hours. I mean, these guys managed to put 10,000 hours into about 2,000 hours worth of time by some miracle. They're pretty incredible. And I remember when we first started, I vividly remember walking, going on a long walk and talking to you guys. And I remember you guys saying, why would we create this whole strategy of releasing a song and telling people that 14 days Rust to Gold is coming when nobody even knows who we are? Like, what was the point? And I remember I said, I just feel it. You know, guys, it's a great song. And as you know, when we wrote that song originally, when you guys wrote the song, we worked on it. We had a strategy in mind to say, let's make records that we know that at the very least, if nobody knows about it, we can license those to film and TV. So we wanted to make records that were very licensable. And I want to talk more down the line about how you guys went and used that as a tool to kind of leverage up what you're doing. But let's talk about the early stages when now we've been in the studio, we've done Rust to Gold, and along with a bunch of other great songs. And I say to you guys, hey guys, let's put Rust to Gold out and let's see what happens. Walk us through that process in your minds.
I remember when we had this conversation too, and we did. With everyone out there, you were very instrumental in writing, helping us with those songs. So I just want to be clear on that. You know, those songs.
That's not wrong. But any compliments are totally fine. But stop. But more. Anyway.
So I remember the call when you called Doug, and that was it. Pull Rust to Gold out, and we're like, you know, oh crap! Why are we going to do this? Justin's crazy. When we released it on that Friday, we really weren't familiar. We never, and I think we told you, we never had like internet and stuff as adults. So there was the first time when we moved from New York City to New Jersey, when we first got internet, talked to you about releasing it. And I reached out to Allison Hagendorf, or Doug did, and she replied after like 3 days. So we released that on Friday. Doug, or maybe I did. Anyway, I emailed her on a Monday. She got right back to me for us to go, and it's like, it sounds like it's all good or something, you know? And we're like, holy shit. We didn't really know what it meant, but I think we've told you about the Spotify list. And we're like, if this is the game, then let's go all in on it. So I emailed her back again, not knowing who she was. She put another one, all for you, right on the Spotify list right away, without like really any hesitation.
But how did you even know to reach out to Allie?
Doug had mentioned that she was the head of global rock for Spotify. And so we didn't really understand what Spotify was at the time. So it basically was like, okay, playlists are the big thing. We need to get on playlists then. If everyone's gauging your success on a playlist, then we need to show them that we mean business and get on playlists. So that was our thinking. Whatever people are gauging success as, we want to be good at that.
How did you even know Allie Hagendorf? I mean, I knew Allie because she used to be an A&R person at Columbia, and she sort of is a pop culture, kind of iconic pop culture person. But how did you even know to make that connection in the first place?
I think I just searched.
Yeah, we
literally just keep searching for hours and hours until we find, you know, it came up who would we contact for control of these playlists. And I think we found her name, and then we probably spent at least 5 hours trying to search out an email.
We found
the end of the internet trying to find emails to these playlists.
We decoded it basically. She never gave us her email, but we decoded it to figure out what her email was, and then we sent it to her. And then the biggest thing is how we set up, and you know this, Justin, is we set up these emails in a way where people just have a tendency to want to open them, and they're very nice and very respectful, yeah. And then people respond to it. You know, and that's why we've been very fortunate in that aspect. But that's how we started the Spotify thing, was a simple email and research.
And from this initial Allie Hagendorf playlist, how many playlists did you get on that first on Rust to Gold?
I think we were in
over 70 countries, and
yeah,
I can't even count hundreds of playlists. Like just every kind of playlist. And these were all cold emails to the editors. So we didn't wait like normal people would pitch. Nowadays, you have that one form. What we did differently is when we realized that people are going to judge you by your Spotify plays, and I think we talked to you about this, is we sat down and literally spent most of the day just sitting there looking for people. Okay, who is in charge of Japan Spotify? How can I relate what I'm submitting, Rust to Gold, to what Japan means? How can I relate to their fan base or to the people, to the culture? Then develop an email that goes along with that. And then if they didn't respond, I would follow up the next week, then the next week, then the next week, until they got sick of me.
Follow up is the name of the game.
It's the name of the game.
Well, I actually remember getting an email from, I can't remember who it was, but a friend of mine that used to be the head of Sony in Japan, who then was now working at Spotify. And he was like, I love these guys. Did you work on them? And I thought that was a nice moment where the loop was closed. Because do you remember that? Remember when I hit you guys up and I was like, oh,
it was Cash, your friend Cash.
Oh, that's right. It was Cash. That's right. That's exactly what it was. And I thought that was a nice sort of close the loop moment. And I remember, you know, talking to you guys because right around that time, you said to me, we really want a record deal and a publishing deal. Right. And I said, okay, cool. But nobody's going to give a shit. It has nothing to do with how good the songs are. I distinctly remember this conversation because I happened to be in New York at the time, but we were on the phone, even though you guys were in New York. And I remember saying, nobody's going to care until you make them care. And that was a big strategy was, okay, let's build up that story with what you guys are. And I think it was probably in less than a year, you went from being, you know, farmers, you know, to getting that first record deal. Am I right? Is that timing about right there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and really interesting. You know, Madilyn, I want to go back to you for a moment because you. The question I had for you was, okay, so if you were doing this today, where would you be looking? Where would, because you guys both have a very similar thing, and you were very strategic in how you were sort of analyzing the process of the various platforms that you were trying to leverage, right? So if this is you today, what are you doing?
So I think a piece of why my videos still do really well on YouTube even today is because I have such a large catalog of songs. I think I have probably close to 200, maybe 250 videos on my YouTube channel, and they all just kind of build off of each other. I don't know if this is a helpful insight at all, but it's like most of my views come from people watching one of my videos and then watching another video. That's where most of my views come from. So I generate my own views because I have such a huge catalog. And I think what that does is
I've gone down the Madilyn Bailey rabbit hole, I must admit.
yeah. Well, that's what I'm trying to do. So it succeeded. I think the power of a catalog is that not only do I feed my own videos, but I'm also now playing the numbers game. If I cover 250 songs, like maybe 2, maybe 4 of those videos are really going to blow up. You know, I think I've probably done, well over 60, maybe 70 covers before I covered Titanium, and that was the one that blew up. So I think this just applies for the music industry in general. It's just like the more music you can put out, the more likely one of your songs will do well. And if that one song does well and you have a catalog of songs already existing, that one song will make everything do better. And those other songs you start posting after will then make that one video do better. And they just sustain each other like this cool ecosystem.
If I were to say to you, on a scale of 1 to 10, or let's say if you had to pick one, or maybe it's both, is it content or quality?
Oh, I mean, we're assuming that you're putting out music and you're talented and you write great songs and the songs are great. So I'm assuming the quality is already good, right? Obviously you can't polish a turd, you know. There has to be some sort of talent that already exists there. And then once you take an already existing talent and you just put it out there in as many ways as you can, on as many platforms as you can, as frequently as you can, you're just upping your odds of somebody seeing it.
When you look back at let's say your successful songs on YouTube versus your, let's say, not as reactive songs that you put up on YouTube, can you see it? Can you go, oh well, now I know why this one worked, and now I know why this one didn't work?
Nope, 0%. I mean, I'd like to think it's because like I did Titanium in such a special way that people really resonated with it. I think that's a piece of it. It also really helped that Sia's song was so international, and YouTube's also very international. That song was not just a hit in the US, it was a hit literally everywhere all at the same time. And so it was a really good like culmination of like perfect storms hitting at the same time when I covered that song. There's so many variables of like why it could have done well. Like I did a cover of Rockabye and it's my second most viewed video now. And I never liked the song. I didn't even want to cover it, and I did it, and it's like one of my biggest. That's also the thing, is that I think oftentimes the song you don't think will do well but if you don't ever put it out there, you don't get the chance of seeing if something like that could happen. A lot of times the ones I think are going to do well don't do well. I didn't know Titanium was going to do well. I personally liked it, but I didn't know it would do well.
Well, I love that you said you would put up 60 songs before that one. You know, I think that's, you know, it's probably easy to get discouraged, you know, after the 59th one that doesn't react the way you want. You know what I mean? Like you could. There's one of my favorite memes where you see this guy sort of like, you know, kind of chunking his way to the diamond mine. And you ever seen that one? And like, you know, there's one guy goes, "You're almost there," and another down below, you see the other guy turning away because he hadn't hit the diamonds yet. So I love that. And I want you to think about something else as I just jump over to the council guys. The way that you've managed to monetize YouTube, how you get paid from YouTube, and that sort of thing. So have a think on that. I'm going to pivot over to the council guys for a moment. You know, guys, you guys brought up something that I think is really undervalued, which is the hard work component. But one of my favorite stories is I remember, again distinctly, when we were working on Rust to Gold and we were sort of living in our dream universe of going, oh, can you imagine this song is going to be perfect for this, and it's going to be perfect for that, and it's going to be perfect for this. And I can't remember which one of you guys, but said, oh my God, we could see this song in the Olympics, right? And about a year later, going, guess what? Rust to Gold is going to be on the NBC coverage of the Olympics. And, you know, and I just was like, of course it is, because I know the way you guys operate. Can you tell us a bit about that process of how you managed to envision the song being on the Olympics and then actually get the song on the Olympics?
So obviously, when we were with you with the Rustical, I remember that, discussing that. You walking around the room and discussing the title of it because it had been called No Ceiling. So we had reworked it.
I remember we made fun of some of the titles.
Yeah, we were all like kicking around. And then, I think you had suggested that. But I think, Rustical, when we were thinking about it, you start, as the song builds, you start thinking of applications. It's hard not to. And then we had discussed it, I think, when the songs were recorded. We discussed, you know what, a good way to make our name, why don't we reach out to some of these places we think the song would do well? And Doug, you can take it from here.
So pretty much after we all decided and thought, hey, this might be a great Olympic song, I did more research, which takes a while, and I had to figure out who was in charge of production / music for the Olympics. And it's a hit and miss because some people, even if it says they're in charge of production, they're not. And I sent out plenty of emails. And I sent one to one of the execs at NBC, and he got back to me and said, hey, Doug, thanks for thinking of us. They usually put that line, and said, I'll take a listen. And I'm like, okay, at least he got back to me. That was nice of him. And I didn't hear anything for months, nothing, and then someone else contacted us from NBC and said, we're still looking at the song. I probably did about 5 or 6 follow-ups. We're still looking at the song. So it was, in my mind, it's dead. Fast forward to the opening night of Olympics, we're in the store. It was like 11 o'clock at night or something. We probably were drinking, and we were going to get something to eat. And someone texted us and said, you guys know your song's in the Olympics, right? And we're like, no. How are you sure? And they're like, yeah, your song's in the Olympics. And then they sent us a video of it. And so we literally didn't know until that night that the song was in the Olympics. But to get to that point, I guess, back to your question, it takes research, and it takes a lot of time just hitting and missing with people on the internet. You have to come at them in a nice way, respectful way, because they're very busy people. And, if you have a good product, they're willing to listen. That's the main thing. They need songs, and you have a song. So if it's good and you pitch it in a nice, respectful way, you have a good shot.
I think also, if I could just add to that, the biggest part too is when you're pitching, even if they say no, they're going to remember the relationship you've just built because you've been nice. You submitted a song, they said no. And then you could say, oh, I'd be happy to send you one of my new songs when I finish it. It's a relationship builder, and that's essentially what it is. So now these people for the rest of the time you're in music that you can reach out to again wherever they go, because they do move a lot. And it's the relationships you start building, and that's very important.
Yeah, so true. I mean, I think a common point that we seem to come back to on these conversations that we have is building your relationships, right? Is creating those relationships and understanding how to really foster and develop those relationships. And my guess would be you're still communicating with people that you started these relationships 5 years ago with, right? So I think that's incredibly important. And again, I don't think you can undervalue that. I want you guys to think about the process of, because this is called IND.I.Y. Get it, like indie, but like also DIY, like do it yourself. Like, I don't know. It was the best I could come up with at the time.
That's clever.
But what I want to talk about is, so now you go get a record deal, and I want to talk about the process, how your lives changed for the better and for the worse, and kind of where you are now. So I'm gonna bounce back to Madilyn, have a think on that one. Madilyn, I'm kind of biting some questions here because I see some people are starting to ask, and I really want to get into Q&A because it's kind of blown up over here. The question I have is, tell us about the process that you need to go through legally to put a cover up on YouTube, and then how do you then monetize that cover?
Yeah, so covers are interesting, and they've changed throughout the years. It's actually a lot better now than it was even like 2 or 3 years ago. So at this point, YouTube has deals with publishing companies, so you don't have to. So it's technically fine to post a cover on YouTube. Most songs. You are allowed to monetize. So on your channel, there's certain percentages of the songs. You can monetize the audio, the visual, the audio visual. So you can monetize the visual piece of it because you own the video content of it. So the piece of it you can't monetize is the audio portion of it. And then it depends on if YouTube has a deal with that publisher, you'll get a split of that. But if not, technically the publishers get that 50% of your video and you can't do anything about it. So it's better than the publishing company asking you to take the video down, which I've had a handful of covers be taken down just because the publishing couldn't get cleared and it wasn't worked out with YouTube. A lot of times this will be if somebody's self-published, for example. But in general, covers are not as lucrative as original songs. Obviously, original songs, you get to monetize 100% of everything. And it's way better when you're posting original content.
So we're gonna come back to that because I want to talk about your transition from covers to originals, right? So effectively from going from Madilyn Bailey to Madilyn, and that's the part. By the way, just on a side note, not that I'm trying to toot my own horn, but I know that Nikki's on this call, and I think she wrote Oxygen with us, right? I mean, This is like, you guys. I mean, if you can go check out Madilyn Bailey, All My Oxygen. It's a song that actually Nikki Flores is on the call, and I remember we wrote that. It felt really special in the room, and you just absolutely the video is so beautiful, and I just don't think that song has been given the credit it deserves at being as special as it is. So, but have a think about that, about transitioning from kind of covers to original stuff, and then also maybe how you move your fan base from YouTube to Instagram to Spotify, so on and so forth. And then I really want to get into Q&A because it's kind of blown up over here, and I want to do less talking. I'm going to go back to the council guys here. So, fellas. I remember a big goal was, okay, now that we've established some success and some credibility and some activity, now all of a sudden, I remember saying to you, once you do this and it starts working, record labels are going to come to you, and they did. Not that I was able to predict it. I've just been doing this business too long to know that that's the process. And so you're starting to win now on Spotify. You're up to millions of streams, hundreds of thousands of monthly listeners. Which, by the way, I think it's underrated to say that. I'm still impressed with the fact that I think you guys have like 350,000 monthly listeners still, which is pretty incredible. Doing it all on your own. I think that's because you're releasing content. But so now you get a record deal, and you're now you've been so fiercely independent. All of a sudden, here comes a label, and we don't want to talk about the label, regardless of whether it was a good experience or a bad experience. But now all of a sudden, they kind of have a say.
Yeah.
Right. So tell us about that.
When we got signed, it was based on the material clearly that we had released and unreleased. So there was an understanding of vetting of like, okay, like you always say, work with the people that believe in you or like what you do. Go where the love is. That's what you always say. And so that's what we did, essentially. But as it progressed, we realized that, you realize this, that people are never going to work as hard as you do. And the vision started unraveling. Like we had brought all these things like American Idol, So You Think You Can Dance, World of Dance. We had been continually bringing in all these things when we signed with them. And nothing was done to like get a bigger fan base or kind of direct us. And so we kind of felt lost. Like, I thought that this would be the end all be all, having this label support us and come up with ideas and market. And it tended not to be the case. If you don't have all your ducks in a row and you're not really aware of who you are or who your fan base is, a lot of times, a lot of labels can't help you, or they don't know the keys to success. Otherwise, they would have all successes. So it's kind of like we were there for a year, kind of just treading water, figuring out what to do next. It was a very weird process. It was great to be able to sign it, but in the process of doing all that, we continued to do what we normally do, bring in things, and I don't think that they were able to work with that, to transition that into a fan base, into everything else going on, which was where, like, as an independent artist, you have to realize that a lot of times having all those, having the control of what you're doing is very important. And a lot of times you don't need someone else to come in there unless you're really ready for it. And that's kind of where we're at.
And so kind of the label thing didn't work out for you guys. It did not. It wasn't
mutually split. A year later, literally on Halloween, we had a phone call and mutually split.
Yeah. And now you're kind of back at it in your own way again, and you're sort of starting to see the results sort of come back to you now, right?
Absolutely. So when we left with songs we had written that we're currently releasing now. What we realized is that, like Madilyn was saying, is content. We've been not releasing anything for a year straight. So any type of fan base we had built up basically thought we were gone. So starting fresh again, you realize, okay, we're going to release a song, put something behind it.
have a good consistent release schedule, and it started to yield results. You know, like in 4 weeks, we had a fan club build a page for us, and we have over 1,000 followers on that fan page that buy $500 worth of merch every month, you know, in 4 weeks, because we're continually trying to get people involved. We're trying to figure out who our fan base is. And now that we have that, we know that we can go to that and continue to expand.
One of the things that we talked about last week in our discussion was the concept of having to learn how to self-manage and having to do things. And what I think you guys, both of you have done, which I think is amazing, is you know, whether it's one fan or 1,000 fans or 1,000,000 fans, you know, both of you guys, you really like dig into those relationships really significantly. Actually, I think one of my funniest things that you do, Madilyn, is when you do those songs about negative comments. I think those are hysterical. If you guys look them up, they're so funny. She writes songs using all of the negative comments she receives on YouTube. I think that's being such a good sport about it, and they're actually hysterical.
Thank you.
But we can talk about that more. And again, I don't want to monopolize this conversation because there's so many good questions coming in. But you know, now you're at a point where you're transitioning from the covers thing to really being known as an artist. You've also been fiercely independent. I can't not imagine that labels weren't throwing buckets of money at you. In fact, I know for a fact that they were, because when I was working with you, presidents of labels were coming to me saying, "Hey, do you think Madilyn would be interested?" And I said, "That's, you know, this is not my cake to cook. It's up to you guys." So you stay independent. Tell me about that process of retaining your independence, but also transitioning to being known for original music.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still obviously making some of that transition now. I'm not doing covers anymore, which was a really hard thing, I guess, to decide to stop doing, which is why I started doing the comment songs that you're talking about. I still wanted to have a piece of content that felt like very YouTube, but that also was completely original. And I think they've done this like perfect transition between what people were used to, these like acoustic covers, and establishing, hey, look, I write my own songs. I can even take your hate comments and write a song, which is the idea behind that. I think what's been really what's made this transition simpler for me is that even when I think one of my greatest talents is being able to hear someone's story, interpret it, digest it, and make it my own story. I think stories have always been my like language of how I communicate with the world and with people. And so whether it was my story or not my story, I was still able to connect with it. And I'm finding that I have a very large audience of people who are just really excited about how my voice tells stories. So I basically, while I was doing covers on YouTube, was doing every bit of artist development I could possibly do that I would think a label would put me through. I think I was fortunate that I never got offered some like crazy record deal that I couldn't turn down. I got offered some really horrible deals that I was just unwilling to take, most of which wanted 100% of my YouTube channel, which was just never going to happen. Still would never happen. Yeah, I guess even then I knew the importance of like retaining this thing that I had built, that handing it over to anybody who didn't understand it was going to be detrimental. So the cool part about the way we're making the transition now is the way that we're using all the different platforms. And like, I know maybe you never thought that the word TikTok would make its way into one of these conversations. But what I love is that I love when an app like TikTok comes into the scene and totally changes an industry. Like it totally changes YouTube. It totally changes the music industry. It totally changes which songs are doing cool, are doing well. And it's fun to be able to like learn a new platform. So I think that's something that like anybody can learn from, is to just keep an eye on where and how people are being introduced to music, and then learning those different platforms. It puts you in front of as many people as possible. So something kind of cool that's come from TikTok is that there's a version of TikTok in China, which is where TikTok's from, but they're completely separate platforms. All my content got re-uploaded in China, and so now I have this like crazy huge like enormous fan base in China. It's like kind of insane. I had no idea it existed until a year ago. I tested out a tour to see if the numbers were real, and it like sold out within like minutes. It was crazy. I was like, wow, okay, so there's a fan base here. This is a roundabout way of answering the question, how do I transition from covers to original music? It's this fan base. It's crazy. And the more content I put on all these platforms, the more that they build. And it's kind of like what you guys were saying about the emails, where it's like, it isn't about whether the song is great or not. It's really about the connection that you build. And that's the reality, is that it's the connection that you're going to build with your audience, and nobody can do it better than you. And we're in this cool, amazing day and age where you have this instant, intimate connection with your fans if you want it. And so I think it's a very similar type of relationship you're building with your audience.
I love that. Well, we can keep this going all day, but I'm just seeing these chats just blowing up. So I'm going to hand it over to Zan. Zan, maybe we can, and we're going to try and hit as many questions as possible. Zan,
I'm here.
let's go.
Cool. This is from Nicholas Culp. What are the most effective ways that you've found to use your budget? Google ads, production, networking, Spotify ads, etc.
Most effective would be probably Facebook ads for us. And we actually don't put that many ads out at all. So I can't say that we're over a user of ads.
I can, if I could just quick answer that, I would think the best thing we've realized that actually does better and performs better than anything is just finding like a fan base. Like for us, it's like literally going to Imagine Dragons platform, sending individual people comments saying, hey, this is Pat Reeves. I like Imagine Dragons. We're in the same genre. I would love to be able to send you some music. They respond back. They're always polite. You send them the music. Then we do a follow-up with a personal video saying, we would love for you to follow us on, Facebook, Spotify, and Instagram. That's how you can consistently get 20, 25 people a day if you do it. And that it does way better than a Facebook ad.
Yeah, 100 times better.
100 times better. These people remember that video for life, and you convert more fans than you would ever do on the net.
It's a little more legwork, but it's instant connections.
Well, I think a lot of people feel like, how do I get the most bang for my buck, and what's the easiest way to do this? And you guys continually just kind of remind us it's just hard work, right? It's just putting in the hours. I mean, for every 1 hour of recording, you've probably spent 20 hours of self-marketing, right?
Oh, yeah, easy.
Yeah. We're gonna take another question and hand the next one off to Madilyn. Zan.
Yeah, this is from Reiner Sturzer. For Madilyn, what was your approach to your own artist development? And is the best strategy to build a large audience doing covers than to pivot to originals?
The first answer to that is like every person is completely 100% different. My career won't look anything like yours. There might be things you can take from it, pieces of advice, but never try to make your career look like somebody else's. Yours will just be uniquely yours. If covers was your way in, that's your way in. If it was auditioning for American Idol, that was your way in. If it was, Fifth Harmony, Camilla was in Fifth Harmony, was on America's Got Talent. Was that what it was? Yeah. And then I'm just saying, everybody has their different avenue into the industry. No one's looks the same. I would say common things between people that are successful who are doing it themselves tend to be, just right like all the time. With anybody you can get in rooms with, you learn from everybody that you write with.
The good and bad, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Less good than great sessions. But there's only a few that are magical, which make the magical ones extra special. I would say nowadays, spend a lot of time learning your different social medias, like figure out those platforms, figure out what people are watching. Each one's very different. Each one has its like own sense of humor, like styles of videos, vertical, horizontal, lengths, times of day to post. Like, just spend a lot of time just being a student of those platforms, because if you have your own platform, like, you might, like, you are your own advertising system then.
You know, so many artists that I talk to, it's just like they look at, in fact, we talked about this last week with Larry Wade, who works with Lizzo, is that like Lizzo was just like not into Instagram. And they're like, you need to kind of do this. And you know, because it's a part of your business, right? Like that's the marketing side of your business. And if you don't do that, then why are you even making music in the first place, right? Like this is, and so once she sort of kind of like what you said, once she understood the thing that kind of turned her on about Instagram, it all kind of made sense. And then she really dove into it and she used that. And then it all started, you know, all the success started to kind of converge at the same time. Really interesting point.
Totally. And you don't have to do covers to get traction in music. I mean, I see all these people on TikTok who just literally post clips of the different projects they're working on in the studio, like part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 1, part 2, part 3 videos work really well on TikTok, FYI. People love those. But I'm just saying, like, I see people giving piano lessons on there. I see people giving production tips. Like, they just have a TikTok that's literally just giving people production tips. So whatever it is you're doing, you can find a way to twist and use what you're using for each platform and make it specific to those platforms.
I love that. Identifying your own lane. So true. Zan, what's up?
Yep. This one's from EG Music NYC. So we shouldn't tag ourselves as artists when posting a cover on YouTube?
When I do covers, I put my name in the tags, but I don't put my name in the title of the video because I'm trying to get like Ed Sheeran Shape of You official video. I'm trying to get it to show up right next to Ed Sheeran's official video. I don't know if that works well anymore. I have no idea. This is a game that if you're trying to find out the YouTube algorithm, you're gonna have to experiment. It changes a lot.
Cool. Zan.
This one's for council. Do you have an exclusive sync rep?
No, we don't. We really we just reach out to anyone we think our songs. I mean, the other day Doug reached out to Peloton maybe 5 months ago, and then I was thinking the other day, I'm like, you know what? I think our new song Savages will go well with Peloton. I sent him an email. It turns out I talked to her for an hour. Doug sent her 4 emails. She never responded, but that's how we do our syncs right now. You know, is reaching out to companies and telling them why we think we fit into what they're doing.
Wow. I mean, I love it. You guys are ballsy. I mean, I've always said that. I'm really impressive. You know, it's really impressive. This is actually a good opportunity to talk about it. Something that we've had a conversation with some of you guys about is, you know, we want to try and create a MDIIO music search engine that allows everybody to upload their songs and be put in the path of opportunity with major studios and production companies. This is something that we're actually working on right now. So if you're interested in it, you know, just sort of let me know, and we'd love to talk to you about it. But it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be, you know, we really believe in trying to democratize the opportunities for everybody here. And so, you know, for you guys, you know, for example, Council, would be amazing. Just put your stuff on there, and you hope, you know, hopefully something, you know, things can happen from it. And I want to talk to you guys about it because it's going to be really exciting, super artist friendly. And we think that we can actually help everybody monetize their songs. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk about it. Zan, more questions. Feed the beast.
Sorry, that was from Dana Kelson. The next one's from Sumiko. How often do you post a cover on YouTube?
Okay, so when I was posting covers, which I'm not anymore, when I was posting at the peak, it was 4 a month. But that year, my goal was, I literally started the year and I was like, I'm going to cover every #1 hit for the rest of this year and see what it does to my channel. And I literally had the craziest year of my entire YouTube life that year. So I think that answers the other question of, is it quantity, quality conversation, quantity wins. I don't know. I don't know if all those videos were good or not, but it took my channel to a new level. I think I got 3 million subscribers just that year alone.
Wow.
This actually is one of my theories, is when something's working, beat it to death. Seriously, if something's working, just annoy people with it. Use it, bring it out, and then move on to the next thing and figure out what it is. But don't be afraid to overdo it, I guess is what I'm saying. Just working is working.
Well, you know, I think that's so true, because when you look at, I think, artists with significant longevity, they just kind of know when to pivot at the right moment, don't they? Mm-hmm. And you know, I could think of artists who just of over this. But one of the people that comes to mind just initially off the top of my head is like Bruno Mars. That like he just knows when to pivot creatively and artistically in order to sort of like, I don't know, go to like the next gear or something, or go to the next level, and I think that great artists understand that. So I totally think you're right. More questions.
This one's from Daniel LaCroix. Are you still involved in the process of managing ads, marketing campaigns, etc., or do you have a team that does that for you?
I don't think either of you guys have teams, but Madilyn, you want to start this one?
I use Playlist Push sometimes. I think that's probably the only thing I really use that's marketing or advertisement. I have a PR team that I hire when I'm releasing a song. And so then they'll line up like interviews for me and press and different collaboration opportunities that might make sense, like based around a song. You don't necessarily need a PR team. I like to have one, but you can just do it the old-fashioned way and like you're saying, find the emails, email the people, let them know what you're doing, how their viewers might enjoy this song and this story, and this is why. And you could get the interviews yourself for sure. So you don't need one. I like having one because it's one less thing that I have to do. That's something I'm learning recently, is that it's okay if I'm not good at everything. Even if I can be good at it, it doesn't mean that I have to be good at it. I can just write songs and be an artist.
Very mature perspective. I mean, we already know that the council fellows they're just so super DIY that I think we already know the answer to that question.
If I had two more of myself, we might be in business.
Again, I just got to go back. I got to go back and reiterate that same thing that I was saying earlier, which is it's fun to do the music. It's fun to do the creative stuff. It might not be so fun to do all of the marketing, but it has to go in tandem with what you're doing, right? I mean, it's like I said, for every hour of the fun thing, you got to kind of do 9 hours of the hard work. And I think that a lot of people just, accidental success doesn't happen that often, is my point. 59 YouTube covers before Titanium. Just like, it's like all of the work that you did before Rust to Gold sort of like creates an impact. Let's go. There's a couple more good questions here. I see them, but I don't want to jump in on them. Zan?
From Lisa Casio. So I currently write my own songs and I'd like to publish them, but I saw a lot about contracts to sign. I would mostly like to publish original songs, but how should I know which label is good? I'm still underage and have a lot to learn about the music industry.
So first of all, what I think a lot of people don't realize is that if you write a song, you are actually a publisher. You don't need another company to represent you. That's the first thing. So how you do that is you go and register with a performance rights organization. So it could be ASCAP or CSAC or BMI in the US. For us, you can actually register directly with SOCAN through MDIIO.com. And as you guys know, I don't push MDIIO on these calls because it's not really what this is about. I want to just kind of like give you guys access. But you can actually register as a writer with a PRO at SOCAN through our portal. And in the US, a new PRO called Alltrack. But then you can also register as a publisher with that same with your PRO. So that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is kind of like what I told the council guys, is like create some momentum, get cuts, put music out. Sort of like if you can somehow take what Madilyn's saying and take what the council fellows are saying, and put that into your writing career, you're going to start seeing a lot of options come to you. Now, I've always had publishing deals. I've had publishing deals for 20 something years now. I did my first publishing deal back in 1996. And sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. So my instinct is to say, develop your career, create as much what's called pipeline revenue, which is basically money that you're earning that you've yet to be paid for. And then you can dangle that in front of a music publisher if you feel like they'll get you to the next step. But again, just like both of these amazing artists that we're talking to today, the publishers are not going to answer they're not going to be the answer to your prayers. They are going to enhance what you're doing if you use them in the right way. But if you don't, then you're just going to feel really bitter, like, and feel like we're doing all the work and now it's for what, So I hope that answers your question. Zan.
This is from Robert Gibson. Do you think this kind of DIY model works for songwriters only or just the performing artists? Should songwriters operate under a moniker and still try to market it that way?
I think that there's a huge space for songwriters on social media, 100%. There, like, if you go and you look, like some of, and a lot of these writers will be popular writers, but they also might be popular writers because they're really good at their social media. But there are tons of writers on social media that I follow, and there's a whole community that's on there. I think the DIY approach should be for any person who wants to be in the music industry, because here's the reality. Even if you do have a label and they're awesome, even if you do sign a publishing deal and they're awesome and they love you, and that's rare that the deal's awesome and they love you and it's perfect, right? That's not very often that happens. Even if you have that, you're still going to be doing 90% of the work. You're still going to be doing everything yourself. You're still going to be the one who cares the most. You're still going to be the one who writes the songs, who makes the calls, calls the shots, does everything yourself. So why not educate yourself, put yourself in the best position to know your industry, know what you're doing, so then you can't get screwed over. You can't get like manipulated. It's far too easy to hand that over.
I think a good way to look at it is record labels and music publishers are meant to amplify the work that you're doing. They're not meant to create that work that you're doing. And I'll just tell you a really quick story because I know there's more questions. My now just recently turned 16-year-old daughter got 3 songs cut by an artist named Kevin George because she DM'd him on Instagram and had good beats that he loved. So I just think it's like, this is and you know, she's a young producer that does music really, really well. She had a really fantastic teacher. Like, I mean, he was like the best. But you know, so yeah, I think songwriters can use social media to their benefit.
Yeah, I actually like sat down because I was thinking about potentially signing a publishing deal this year as well. And I sat down with one of my friends who's gotten cuts with a lot of people. And she said every cut she's ever gotten that's significant, she got herself. It was not her publishing company that did it for her. It was the relationship she built with the artist. She's the one who DM'd them on Instagram. That's how she said she gets most of her sessions, is she just DMs people on Instagram and asks to do sessions with these artists. And then she develops the relationship, and then that's what gets the cut. It's not, she said, I don't know that my publisher's actually gotten me any cuts. But
if you need to collect 13 cents in Lithuania, that's how you do it. Dan.
This is from Richie Olson. What are key artist development factors that you should define before reaching out to labels?
I mean, everything. You have to have, they literally want to take over a business that's functioning and making money.
So you have to be able to show them that you're streaming well, you have a good fan base, your socials are not only up to date, but that you get people, you know, you can't buy these followers. They need to see that there's interactions, there's a lot of activity going on. You have to have everything in order, that a label is going to want to jump in and go, you know, I can see there's money being made. How can I now take over and make more money for myself and for this artist? So they're believe me, if there's a hole, they're going to punch it. We were not good at social media, and we were told every single time about social media. And even though we brought up syncs and we're like, well, we've been busy doing syncs and streams, they always poke a hole at social media. So you have to have everything aligned for them to consider you.
It's a numbers game now. They open a laptop, they look at numbers. Your music is not really the first thing that they take into consideration.
Yeah. You know, you said something so perfect. You said something so perfect that if you're going to let someone come in and take over your business that's already earning money, that is such a true statement, and I never really heard it put that way. But you're absolutely right. If you're going to allow somebody to come in and take over your business that's already earning money, you better make sure that they're the right partners to have. So true. So true. Wow.
Well, and also there has to be a large enough vision from that label that so you're going to get a smaller percentage, right? But the hope is that you make so much more money with this label that tiny percentage is worth more than 100% independently. That's the hope. The example I have is when Titanium blew up in France. I did this cover, and 4 years after I did it, it started playing on a radio station in France. Just the head of Virgin Radio in France loved the song and started playing it. So it broke top 40 without a label. But when the label saw that it broke top 40 on its own, they went, oh my gosh, we can make this a #1 hit so easily. So I signed a deal with them within like 2 weeks of this song breaking top 40. And then they pushed it from top 40 to #1 within 2-3 months. And it's that's where a label can come in and really pour gasoline on the fire, is when something's already happening and they go, oh, we know exactly how to break this. We can get you on these TV stations. We can get you on these talk shows, and we'll blow it up. And that's what happened in France. So you have to have something that's already happening.
Larry Wade said the exact same thing about Truth Hurts with Lizzo. He said as soon as they recognized that they had something going on, it was like, he was like, watch this. And he just said he saw really what a label could do at that point. But I think you're totally right. We're going to take a couple more questions.
This is from Jordan Coker. How are you guys adjusting considering the current COVID-19 state of affairs?
I could start with that one. It's been the greatest thing. I can honestly say I know most artists would say not. Since the COVID started, I'd have to say our band's literally taken off to compared to what it was. And I think it's because as soon as it started, we embraced it and said, we're not going anywhere, and no one else is as well. So we have to be on the internet. We have to put in live stream shows, and we all live together, so we're able to do that. And we have to engage as much as we can with fans. And it literally we wake up around 5:36 in the morning and we go to bed by 10 o'clock. And if we're not playing music, we're on the internet talking to fans. And if we're not doing that, we're doing a live stream. And it's exponential growth since the COVID started.
You have more people. Everyone's at home. They're not going anywhere.
People are bored. Yeah.
They're going to pay attention. And these companies too, just an example is I reached out to Express and I gave them the idea is, hey, what if because they had given us free clothes, but I basically just said, hey, what if we were dressed in Express organically and we took over your IG or your Facebook page and put on a 30-minute show for your fans? Or we put together 4 songs and you include it in your mailer to your millions of people that get Express emails. And we've had companies like Bose and Express and, that jump on board with this stuff because it's the perfect time. Music is really what everyone is consuming right now. And so it's a perfect time to hit these people up and say, I would love to, have my brand go with your brand, and we'll do some type of synergy.
Don't be afraid to pitch ideas to people just because they have a job. Don't be intimidated.
Again, I love it. You guys are just like, we're going to do this. We're going to hit up the head of music for NBC. Let's see what happens. And I think that a lot. Again, great points. I think a lot of people are intimidated by the process of going, oh, I'm going to do this. But if you don't ask, you won't receive, right?
Yeah,
love it. Let's take a couple more, and then you guys have been so generous with your time, Zan.
This is from Paul Casanova. What's your bar in terms of production quality when creating lots of content is an ongoing process?
Here's my answer. Make the highest quality content you can make right now, and then strive to get better. But you have to start making stuff now, and you have to start putting it out. You're going to get better. Whatever you make now won't be as good as what you make in a year or 2 or 3. I mean, that's the hope, right? If you're growing. When I started my YouTube channel, I didn't have an HD video camera. I had dial-up internet. It took me over 24 hours to upload a video to YouTube. Do you understand this? Work with the highest quality content you can at the time, and then work to get better. And then I guess my next piece of advice is at some point, stop trying to make everything perfect. Because once you can get the quality you want, you could just spend forever fixing a song, forever fixing a mix. At some point, you just have to put it out there and trust that you know what you're doing.
Let's take one more question, and then we'll wrap this up.
All right, this is from George Tandy Jr. What sorts of things do you do to stay mentally and emotionally healthy and energized given the amount of social media and screen time required to push your careers forward successfully?
Coffee. Just kidding. Does actually require a lot of coffee. It's a really good question because I think at this specific time, a lot of us are being challenged mentally and creatively. I journal a lot. I have a whole routine. I get up, I drink my coffee, I journal. I think for me personally, I am the happiest when I'm creating. And so if I make sure to continue to schedule time to be creative into every single day, I just feel so much better, because there's going to be a lot of stuff you have to do that you don't want to do that feels like taking out the trash. So you have to prioritize and fight for time to just be creative as an artistic person.
Yeah, what I was going to say too is I would imagine that consuming social media versus being a content creator for social media is also it's a different dynamic, isn't it? It's like it's not like you for you social media isn't like I mean maybe there is some research where you're kind of digging through TikTok and going what's working, but probably most of the time it's creating that content that you're then uploading, that you're then managing those interactions with your fans. I think there's a bit of a different dynamic there too. And
I actually schedule time to study the different platforms. So if I'm specifically like, oh, I need to come up with a few videos for TikTok, I'll spend an hour watching TikToks, but specific kinds of TikToks. I actually find it like super not helpful, like you were saying, to be a consumer of these platforms, because then you just go into this like weird like comparison spiral, which is very dangerous. You have to kind of just focus on what you're doing, see what you can glean from what other people are doing, but really just focus on your path and what works for you.
Well, I mean, for me, just for me personally, my days are definitely hyper scheduled these days, because I think it's really easy to just all of a sudden be like, oh shit, I've binged a whole series of Netflix and it's Tuesday. Like, I think the whole idea is actually to create those. I think people need those restrictions, right? Those schedules, do those things. Yeah. You guys would be probably really proud to know I am actually wearing jeans today as opposed to shorts. But keep me that schedule.
What are those?
Yeah, I wanted to take this time to thank council and thank Madilyn. You guys are extremely generous with your time today and your knowledge, and I think both of you can write books on how to do this and how to identify where your lane is and how to maximize your lane. And I think that's really the biggest takeaway to me for today, was for both of you guys really being able to understand where that lane is and then how to really just go full speed down it. And both of you guys, I know there was no plan B. It was like, we're going to do this. And if it didn't work, I mean, I think for council, plan B was go back to the farm, and Madilyn, for you, plan B was probably go back to Wisconsin or something. I don't know. But I feel like the plan B was such a scary proposition that there was no fail for plan A. And I really respect you guys for kind of going all in. I feel the same way. I think that ultimately it's what you have to do. I want to thank Curtis Cerna, my partner in MDIIO.com. I want to thank Zampoka. I want to thank James Best. And again, please, if you're not following us on our socials, please do at We Are MDIIO. And thank you, Madilyn. Thank you, council. You guys are awesome.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Stay safe, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.